Welcome into Giants Training Camp Report presented by Investors Bank. I'm Madelyn Burke here with Giants Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara. Shaun, we're getting a hot one out here today. The high is going to be in the 90s. It's been pretty moderate so far in training camp, but another day in full pads. The heat's cranking up. What are you expecting to see out here today?
Yeah, the temperature's rising a little bit, and anytime you go full pads and it gets a little hot, the temperatures also rise with that. So I know the coaches are excited to get some good work right here, and let's get right to it, Madelyn. We're going one-on-one pass rush right here, O-line versus D-line, one-on-ones, and this is what camp is all about right here. Honing your skill, honing your technique, working on the fundamentals. The one-on-ones are so big, especially in full pads, because when you're not in full pads, you don't get the same leverage. You don't get the same, the defensive linemen don't lean as much. So that always adds a different element to it. And I think as an offensive lineman, when you're in full pads, you can work more on your anchor, which is such a big part of pass protection. And once you get your hands inside and they're trying to bull you, knock you back to the quarterback, you can really set your feet and cleats in the ground and anchor.
Absolutely. And I mean, we talk about the pads a lot because especially in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, there's not a lot of work on your technique you can do in shells or just helmets. The pads is really where that focus comes in that category, correct?
Yeah, when you're doing helmet practices or just shells, that's much more mental and footwork. But the pads, as a player, when you throw those knee pads on, when you wear the pants, you just kind of morph. You morph into all right, this is work. This is, bring your lunch bucket. You're going to get some good work in. I know as a center, I actually preferred to wear the pants that they're wearing right now in practice as opposed to the mesh shorts, because the mesh shorts, when those things get sweaty and wet, it doesn't work out very well.
It doesn't work out. Not too comfortable out there.
But we're seeing right now the offense is working against themselves. So they're working on certain plays against a carded defense. This is not a live drill, but we did see Daniel Jones keep the ball on one play. And, we know that that's absolutely an element of this offense, as you see him talk to Jason Garrett right there and get the play. But when you look at this offense right here, there you see Nate Solder in the middle, number 76.
Yeah.
He's actually lining up next to Matt Parrott. So this is like extra offensive linemen. They're working like their heavy, extra offensive lineman formation and personnel. So this is, short yardage or 4-minute offense when everybody in the building knows you're going to run the football.
Nice,
and you've got to find a way to get it done.
Right there too. It seems like Daniel Jones and Evan Ingram have kind of picked up where they left off with that chemistry. We've seen them connecting quite a bit so far in training camp.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Evan Ingram looks phenomenal. I mean, he comes into training camp every year and you say, man, that guy is a physical specimen. But I feel like this year, his burst and his suddenness, his acceleration, I feel like it's even better than it's ever been. And that's why he's getting the football so much, because this guy is a blur, and I don't think you can get him the football enough.
Absolutely. And there's definitely that trust that's built between these two as well that we're seeing. That run game, too, getting going quite a little bit.
Yeah, there's Alfred Morris, the butler. The butler.
Joe Judge talked a little bit this morning about what he's expecting out of today's practice. He said they're going to be building a little bit more team periods as opposed to some of those individual drills that we saw the first couple days in pads. Talk about how the strategy of ramping up in training camp goes. I mean, this point in training camp, the end of the second week out here on the field, these guys are kind of getting tired of beating up on each other, but they're wanting to get in a little bit more of a football simulation as opposed to a fundamental simulation.
Yeah, I mean, the progression for camp is absolutely, you want to build up their legs, build up their conditioning in that first week, and then now as the pads come on, now you're working situations. And that's why when you get into full pad at practices like this, and there you see Kadarius Toney right there getting involved, you start breaking down, all right, this is a certain part of the game. It's red zone area, or this is 2-minute offense. And right now they're working on kind of their 2 and 3 tight end run packages, which you sprinkle in some play action passes. We saw the pass to Evan Ingram, now the pass to Toney. Sometimes what happens is you can get big chunk yardage in these situations because everybody's at the line of scrimmage. You bring in 2 and 3 tight ends or an extra offensive lineman in that Nate Solder case, and now everybody's up by the line. You can create a lot of space outside the numbers. Nice throw by Mike Glennon right there, showing off his
Damian Willis. A lot of people out there seeing 87. They're used to Sterling Shepard in that number, but Shepard, of course, in 3 this season. Damian Willis wearing 87. We did see, though, earlier Mike Glennon throwing that completion, as we mentioned, to Kadarius Toney yesterday. Toney was talking about how he's assimilating, obviously coming along a little bit slower because he was on that COVID list earlier in camp. But he says, a lot of the receivers are really working together to help him get on the same page. When he was in that isolation for COVID, he was in constant contact with Joe Judge, studying the playbook. They've called him a twitchy athlete, and he's kind of, shown little flashes of that. But what have you seen from Tony so far out here, the rookie?
Yeah, you know what? I like that he's, he looks like he's very focused on learning the offense and just trying to find a way to add value. So I think he's going to be one of those guys where he's going to wow you in practice, but his big plays, I think, are just so instinctual. Like, he doesn't rehearse them. And, when you look at his highlight films, all that stuff is just natural. And I think that's where it's going to be fun to watch him, in a first preseason game, or, next week when we're in MetLife Stadium for the Fan Fest to see him do some drills in front of the fans. I think that he's going to be one of their favorite players to watch.
Absolutely. And we just saw Tony talking with 84 right there, David Sills, and he's a guy who's been making some plays in practice as well. Last year he got injured. But, Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach, was talking about his job is to make it as difficult as possible for Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman to finalize this roster. And that wide receiving group is very deep. They've got a lot of talent in that group and a lot of variety as well.
Yeah, all of that and a lot of speed too. With Slayton, with Shepard, with Galladay when he's healthy. So you have to definitely find a little bit of a niche. I think he's done a great job with the opportunities. It seems like every day he's climbing the ladder, making a big catch, whether it's in the red zone or it's up the sideline. He's got a knack for coming down with the football, and that's something that quarterbacks love. You build that trust factor with them and that relationship, and they're going to come to you even more frequently if you can provide that production.
Absolutely. And the trick, of course, though, is being, as many wide receivers as they want to keep. There's got to be value on special teams as they build this 2021 roster.
So, Madelyn, the plays that we saw the offense kind of going against Cards on their own, now they're running it against the defenses. Now you get a different look, and it's important to do that because when you run a play against a defense on Cards, as a scout team, you're not really sure how the linebacker is going to read it. So that last play we saw was play action, and then once you go against the actual defense, then you get a better idea of how did that backside end play the play fake. Did he come crashing down the line and bite on it, or did he hang tight? That teaches your quarterback how to handle that play action pass. So after the fake, do I have to shorten my rollout because he's not crashing down, or do I try to break, contain, and run out? As we see Corey Clement with a little run right there. So this is all working the game-specific elements. As we take a look at the offensive line right here, we've got Nate Solder in at right tackle. I saw Matt Parrott in at left tackle. Will Hernandez in at right guard. So this right side of the offensive line looks completely different. Nick Gates is in there with the ones, and right now Jonathan Harrison is in at center with the twos and with Mike Glennon.
Yeah, and talking about this offensive line, of course, we'd be remiss not to mention Zach Fulton announced his retirement this morning. Another offensive lineman for the Giants, Joe Looney, retired earlier this week as well. It's going to be tricky. They're developing this group and creating these areas of competition, but another guy steps away. How does that affect the competition in this unit?
Yeah, well, it definitely affects the depth. And, I think for Joe Looney, when he signed, I thought he was going to be an integral part of the offensive line, just, with his, whether the value was as a starter, pushing Nick Gates at that position, or coming in off the bench as a sixth man. He's played so much football. He's started an entire season at center for the Dallas Cowboys in this offense with Jason Garrett. So there was going to be a lot of value for that. And same thing with Zach Fulton. That depth, as well as that competition of pushing guys and having veteran players that, hey, in case somebody misses a game because of an injury or because of COVID, because of a close contact, to have the luxury of having veteran players get in there and take those snaps is big.
Absolutely. And a lot of it's been made, too, about versatility on this offensive line, having guys that can play a lot of different positions. But, you were a part of a unit that won Super Bowl that had a lot of success. Do you get used to who's on the right side of you, who's on the left side of you? And if that's moving around, if that's changing, how does that affect the way this group functions?
Yeah, Madelyn, great point. And right on cue, Jonathan Harrison is in a center, and Nick Gates is in a right guard right now. Mm-hmm. So you got Wiggins in at left guard right now. Nick Gates right now working with Nate Solder. No doubt they have not had a whole lot of reps together as guard and tackle. Nick Gates has been in there at center while he's at tackle. So that provides value right there. And for Nick Gates, for him to get reps as a guard, it's going to make him a better center, because now after running that play as a guard, you could say, okay, I know what the challenges are at guard with that cert block. So now I know who to help more on any given play.
Yeah, and one of the things too that we've seen in training camp is a lot of the mental reps, right? Not just mental reps of the plays, but also changing things up. If there's going to be, the offense or the defense is going to be going multiple or getting versatility going on, you want to be able to adjust and say, we're doing this and now we're doing that. And I feel like Joe Judge has kind of structured his practice almost like an Old Spice commercial, like I'm on a horse, I'm in the shower, look over here, look away. And they kind of bounce around quite a bit. Do you see that a little bit?
I like the Old Spice reference. Yeah, I definitely believe it's important to believe in your smells. I think when you look at the way that Joe Judge has scripted practice and the way that he's designed it all, I mean, the first week they did a ton of red zone area, and it's like, wow, okay, that's an area they want to get better at, but it was also because he didn't want players running long distances and getting any soft tissue injuries. So, I've been very impressed with that. I think the players as well, because it's year two, both for offense and defense. Defensively, year two with Patrick Graham, offensively, year two with Jason Garrett. They're not thinking about the elementary aspects of the offense. Like, all right, is this play to the right? Is it to the left? Which way, which hole is it? What's the protection? Are we sliding? You're not thinking about those things.
Right.
So now you can kind of focus on the next level aspect of it. And I think that's where the growth, we saw it during the second half of the season last year. And I think that growth is going to become exponential as they go through this preseason.
Absolutely, and as we get into some more team drills here, I talked to Leonard Williams earlier on in camp, and he said one of the things he wants to focus on is getting better at transitioning from that run defense to that pass defense mentally a little bit quicker. As we see Daniel Jones, and look at this is a pick, Jabril Peppers running it back. Jabril Peppers is a guy too who has been talked about quite a bit. He is a football player, and the more responsibility you give him, the better he does. That's what special teams coordinator Thomas McGahee was talking about, and using him in the return game.
You just saw it right there. I mean, not just the interception, but all of a sudden the return ability. Now, with him with the football, and you've got offensive players trying to tackle you, I mean, that's an instant touchdown for you.
So when you go into a practice like this, at this point when they're doing these team drills, how scripted are these plays?
Every single play is scripted, and we see here's Nate Solder again. He's the extra offensive lineman. He had to report in as eligible, so we've got two tight ends to the left, and this really is a run-heavy looking formation. We got a little option action. Daniel Jones with a little speed option to the right. Looks like a nice little gadget play right there. You've got your heavy formation to the left, and then you run to the right where it's all about a number count, numbers and angles, right there. So to your point, yeah, it's all scripted. The challenge is for an offense coordinator to try to script the plays. And here's the personnel that I'm doing. I want to show that to the defense so they know that we're going to switch personnel, but I don't want them to know the plays. So there's a little gamesmanship between the coordinators that's always fun to listen to.
Absolutely. And as we're watching Mike Glennon out here now, nice completion over here to Alex Bachman. Bachman made an impact later in the season too for the Giants last year.
Yeah, nice burst there on the little slant route. A nice throw by Mike Glennon, put the ball right on him and allowed him to get some separation after the catch. This offense, I'm looking forward to seeing it in year two and seeing it kind of open up. And I think, last year with Saquon getting hurt early on, and then, just trying to find their identity and establish who they are as an offense, I think that's something that we're going to see happen a lot quicker this year.
Now, as we look at the twos here under Mike Glennon, though, we talked a little bit about the run game. And one thing I do want to mention is, Daniel Jones's running ability. I think a lot of people forget, just how fast he can be and how mobile he can be as a quarterback. Going into his second year in this offensive system, how much do you think that we'll see a little bit more of that on the field this season?
Yeah, he's a weapon. He's not just a quarterback that can run. He's athletic. He's fast. I think he's got some moves too, and I think he'll definitely be a big part of the offense. Certainly from the gadget aspect of it. But we just saw a nice tackle by Carter Coughlin. I just want to make a point, number 49.
Yeah.
And he was kind of playing like will linebacker off the ball, which is a little bit of a new role for him. He was a stand-up defensive end in college. Last year was more on the line of scrimmage, linebacker / defensive end. And now he's kind of in a different position, a different role. Now he's in a little bit more space. Will linebacker, you're kind of off the ball. You see things differently. You have a lot more responsibilities and coverage. So it'll be fun to watch him progress in that new role, and I think that's going to help him overall as a player, and also add some value to him on special teams, because he's going to be in space a lot more.
Yeah, a lot's been made too. I mean, Blake Martinez, the vocal leader as that Mike linebacker in that group, he missed a few days with that on that COVID protocol list, and gave a lot of other guys an opportunity to step up and fill that void.
I think when you look at Blake Martinez, and when you look at some of the veterans that they have in there, Devontae Downs did a nice job. I thought T.J. Bronson had made some nice plays. They do have a lot of young, fresh legs in there, but I'm looking forward to seeing them in year 2 of this defense. Just really continue to communicate and be better. I think with Blake Martinez in there, it almost kind of makes it easy. They don't have to do a whole lot with him because he's such a good field general, and I think does such a great job leading. So this linebacker crew, I think the one thing that we saw them last year is they're all extremely versatile, and they can really rotate them around and have them play all kinds of different positions. So there we get a look at second-round pick Azeez Ojulari, number 51. Mm-hmm. Which is a linebacker number, but look, I think they want him with his hand on the ground, hand in the dirt, coming after the quarterback and rushing the quarterback. But I've been impressed with what I've seen from him early on in training camp. In college, a lot of guys come out and they really struggle with their hands, and they can't clear the hands of an offensive lineman very well, or they give up their chest. He has a really natural ability to get skinny and shrink his chest so he doesn't give the offensive lineman too much to punch, but a really nice natural ability with the hands, with the hand chop, the hand swipe. He clearly has spent a lot of time working on all that.
And then as we look at Odenigbo as well, 44, another recent add this season.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to see Ifedi in a 44 because, he was a defensive tackle for the Vikings, and I think he wore a 90 number, and so now you see 44, and of course you think 44, about Marcus
new
Golden.
Man from the Minnesota Vikings. On his way over to the New York Football Giants, or here with the New York Football Giants. I had to hit that Lizzo reference there. Yeah. But a lot of people are excited about what he's going to bring too.
Yeah, I tell you, he looks a lot leaner than I thought he was, and maybe he trimmed down and lost some weight to be more versatile and get on the outside. But he could play 3 technique, which is on the outside shoulder of the guard, so he can be inside. I saw him playing nose tackle on 3rd down, so I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to see a lot of in known passing situations, 2nd and 3rd down. You're going to see him moving all over the field because he's so versatile. He can play literally every position.
Now we're looking at this drill right here, Shaun. How would you explain what's going on here? What this work is?
So this is a special team drill. It looks like Cam Brown over there, number 47 on the right in the white jersey. They're working special teams right here. And this is all about, right now, this is kickoff. So they're working on, hey, we're running down the field. The first wave of blockers, it's, okay, can you avoid the blocker, but then get back into your lane? So what you're going to see is as they run by these blockers, they want them to get back in their lane, and it's all about maintaining your lane integrity, because if you end up following a teammate down the field, now you created a big space for the running back to run. So you see him running by the blockers. This drill right here now is a different part of it. You see him shock with his hands and create separation and control the blocker, and then he looks to see where the blocker is, and then you shed. So you don't want to shed the blocker too soon, because you could end up tripping over him, or you want to wait until the running back declares where he's going to run before you shed him and pursuing your angle. So again, I tell you, the Giants every day, at least 3 or 4 of their segments and periods in practice are geared towards special teams. So it's absolutely a point of emphasis, and it's something they're working on consistently. As we look at some more safety play, that's Xavier McKinney right there, number 29. Looks like Julian Love as well.
Yeah, and talking about how the emphasis on special teams, it's one thing because Joe Judge, obviously a former special teams coordinator, now the head coach, but the other thing is tale as old as time. The way to make your way onto a roster, if you're a bubble guy especially, is special teams, is to excel in that area. The more you can do, the more value you add to this roster. And when there's 53 spots on a roster, you got to be very careful how you delegate who can you get the most out of.
Yeah, I mean, add value to your, to the roster spot, but also, how about winning games?
Absolutely.
The special teams is such a big part of the game. As that drill that we were just watching right there was, again, running down on kickoff, avoiding the blocker, and then taking a proper angle to make the tackle. You see Joe Judge coaching them right now, and this drill is all about the angles. And you see these guys, all right, the players on the right are running down and engaging the blockers and creating separation with their hands, so that they can control whatever lane they are responsible for. Here they are. There's the control of the hands, and then now you shed, and now you come to balance to make the tackle. You have to be very disciplined, very, very sound in all those techniques, and all it takes is for one guy to get out of his lane, and the returner is going to see that huge space, that huge void, he's going to attack. So this is a big part of it. I know kickoffs look a little bit different these days. And not just for kickoff, this can apply towards the punt team as well. That change of possession play where now you're running down and you have to try to find a way to make a tackle and make a play. There's Devontae Downs right here. All right, there's working the shed, come off the block, make the tackle, run your feet. That's the biggest challenge. Anytime you're working a tackling drill, you can't stop your feet. You have to run through contact and run through the tackle.
And as we see Joe Judge walking around the field, he's very involved. He's very in the trenches and in it with these players. And one of the things that I loved was yesterday, he was actually kicking and punting the ball to some of these guys. And it was on purpose that the ball would kind of land and be a little erratic, because part of it too with special teams with the return game, you're not always going to be able to catch it. You got to be able to anticipate where it's going to bounce to next.
Yeah, I think, as a head coach, you always try to find connections with your players. So, who knows? Maybe we'll see him run a lap next time.
Maybe.
With some of the players. I know last year we saw him work on the fumble
loose ball drill, yeah, with the hose. That was a good one.
With the hose. So, on a hot day like today, that might just come in handy.
Absolutely. All right, Shaun, always a pleasure watching practice with you. That's a wrap for us today here on Giants Training Camp Report, presented by Investors Bank.